If you've only played 2077, some of this gets brought up and kind of glossed over, and the rest of it just wasn't really relevant to 77. But the general backstory behind Cyberpunk goes that by 1989, the original United States allowed the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, and the DEA to become so powerful and corrupt they actually banded together and took control of most of the US government behind the scenes without anyone knowing. They had so much power or so much influence that they ended up starting feuds and full-blown wars with foreign powers that eventually started bankrupting and crippling the entire United States. Eventually, they actually started manipulating the stock markets all throughout Asia and throughout Europe on such a large scale that they got caught. Cyberpunk 2020 even said they went as far as hacking the stock exchanges in Asia and in Europe, but either way, the rest of the world found out and started sanctioning America into oblivion. All of this pushed the US to the brink, but revealing they were doing this to the world's stock markets ended up compromising the entire world's financial system so badly it ended up causing a world stock crash that destroyed or crippled entire economies all around the globe. All of this caused the collapse of the entire US government, which caused the entire country to spiral into chaos. The country eventually reformed as the new United States, but after the collapse, several states had gotten so used to governing themselves that they decided they wanted nothing more to do with a corrupt and ineffective federal government and declared independence. All of this is supposed to be why corporations started becoming more powerful than governments, and it's also why there are free states all around the NUSA. The rest of the country is supposed to be controlled by a new federal government centered mostly on the East Coast, which controls everything east of the Mississippi River and a few states in the Midwest. The free states all govern themselves, collect their own taxes, and even have their own militaries, but they still try to maintain a cordial relationship with the rest of the NUSA, and collectively they even play a role in the NUS government. 2020 says the free states are supposed to have a seat on the regional committee, which is supposed to be the new United States' version of American Congress, but overall there were always supposed to be some tensions between the two sides. Only the states that were large enough and wealthy enough to sustain themselves became free states, so the rest of the country was effectively cut off from huge sources of tax revenue that could have been used to rebuild other places around the country. And because they're all effectively their own countries, it's almost impossible for them to agree on just about anything, so just deciding who gets that seat on that committee takes them forever. And on top of this, some of the free states are apparently outright hostile to each other to the point where it's a real concern for the rest of the new United States. But the conflict between the free states and the NUS federal government is actually one of the ways that Cyberpunk Red started laying the groundwork for 77. And this is where I think Elizabeth Kress could have a larger role to play in all of this. If we only looked at Cyberpunk 2020, the problems between the free states and the government still seem pretty minor, and they didn't really get that much attention in any of the stories. But if you look at Cyberpunk Red, the writers actually started adding things and creating more and more conflict. They added more and more to the overall lore and to the backstory leading into Cyberpunk Red that actually justified and made it more believable that there'd eventually be a full-blown civil war by 2069. Things that were never mentioned once in all of 2020, or just things that are supposed to have happened later. And they've actually given Elizabeth Kress a much larger role in all of this than she ever had before. The first thing that really stands out is Red changing the lore to tell us the old American government actually fought full-blown secession wars against the free states on US soil. In the original Cyberpunk, the free states started seceding after the original government collapsed, and they had so much economic power that the new government couldn't really do anything to stop them. 2020 said this was supposed to be very political and non-violent because the old government wanted to avoid a civil war. But in Cyberpunk Red, they've completely changed the story so that the American military had actually fought against the free states in America before. But now in Cyberpunk Red, they've actually given the NUS government much bigger reasons to have problems with the free states than they ever did before. Red expands the story of the Fourth Corporate War from the 2020s for part of its backstory, and according to Red, when Arasaka and Militech were destroying entire towns and cities all across America, the government had the power to intervene. But when they tried deploying their soldiers to put a stop to the corporate fighting, a lot of the free states wouldn't allow the federal military through their territories. This was supposed to be the cyberpunk equivalent of World War III, where corporations were leveling entire cities all around the world. And even while they were waging war in America, the government couldn't even properly deploy the actual military because free states just kept getting in their way and trying to stop them while the country was burning down. And on top of this, after the war, some of the most powerful free states around banded together into something called the Pacifica Confederation just so they could keep control of the West Coast and stand against the NUS government. Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and North California were already supposed to be the wealthiest free states around, but to make things worse, all of the NUS government's national military stationed in the Pacific Northwest just turned around and defected from the government and started working for the Pacifica Confederation. The Confederation uses the government's ordnance and their soldiers to keep other federal forces out of their land, and they're using them to leverage better deals with corporations to secure more power for themselves, meaning they're basically using the government's own military to secure themselves more power and autonomy from the government. So not only did they contribute to the destruction of America during the war, but a bunch of free states actually hijacked part of the government's national military and started using it against the federal government. And all of this is why Elizabeth Kress has all but openly declared war on all the free states in the rest of Cyberpunk Red. Red says that she actually declared a state of emergency after the war and straight up suspended democratic federal elections because she thought the free states were jeopardizing all of America. We know she stayed in office well into the 2060s for somewhere close to 50 years, and in Red she openly declared she wasn't allowing any federal elections until the government finally had a binding treaty with the free states once and for all. Red tells us she turned the entire NUSA into a functional dictatorship and she refused to lift the state of emergency until she finally got the free states under control.